Want to wake up at 5 a.m., do yoga and Pilates, and drink a green juice every day? You could be that girl. Want to sport minimalistic, glossy makeup, neutral colored clothing, and gold hoop earrings? Then you could be a clean girl. Want to don bold colors and animal prints, fur coats, and big hair? You could be a mob wife. TikTok has become a breeding ground for various quote-unquote girl aesthetic trends, each representing a distinct lifestyle or fashion sense. Not only do we have the clean girl, that girl, or the mob wife in the Rolodex of TikTok aesthetics, we also have the tomato girl, the coastal grandmother, Slavic bimbo, cottagecore, just to name a few of the prevalent aesthetics on TikTok. TikTok aesthetics sway with the wind and we're all being blown away by them. But beneath their glossy surface, these trends hold a mirror to deeper societal issues. The commodification of identity. TikTok with its algorithm-driven content magnifies certain aesthetics that quickly become viral. But as these trends gain traction, they begin to shape identities in ways that are kind of problematic. Let's talk about the problem with TikTok aesthetic culture. In the landscape of social media, TikTok is a pivotal platform driving the emergence and rapid dissemination of microtrends in aesthetics. These aesthetic trends have a profound impact on users, particularly young women who seem to lead the charge, encouraging them to adopt these prescribed identities that often eclipse their authentic selves by reducing them to hashtagable identities. TikTok's algorithm is finely tuned to promote content that quickly captivates and engages users, and this is what leads to the rapid rise and fall of these microtrends. These trends often revolve around specific themes or aesthetics that are visually appealing and on the surface, easy to replicate. But an issue that I take with this rapid dissemination of these microtrends is how it condenses our identities into marketable packages. Particularly younger women are subtly being coerced into molding themselves to fit these prefabricated molds. Now, I know the title of this video is a little bit provocative. I had to make the title a little bit provocative so that you guys would click on it. And if you're here watching, then it worked. Do I actually think in reality that these girls have no personality? Of course not. I think that they have more to offer. But I think in their zeal to go viral and their zeal to have likes and engagement, they're adopting these very limiting identities. While these aesthetics are often portrayed as being a part of a community of like-minded individuals, these connections are typically shallow and transient. The sense of belonging and the so-called hey bestie sisterhood that these trends are trying to promote is false because it's predicated on the surface level similarities that you might share because you guys have the same aesthetic. The rapid churn of aesthetic trends on TikTok is yet another symptom of living in a world where nearly every aspect of human life, including identity itself, is commodified. Continuous overconsumption is encouraged as a means of self-expression, and the constant adoption followed by the discarding of these identities are inextricably tied to consumer behavior. For example, you have to purchase the right makeup products to have the tomato girl aesthetic. You have to purchase the right clothes to have the mob wife aesthetic. You need to sign up for an expensive yoga and Pilates membership and buy expensive green juices from Erewhon to have the that girl aesthetic. And we've talked about this before, how brands often leverage these trends by targeting marketing campaigns that promise consumers the inclusion in these desirable social groups through consumption. There's almost always a link to an Amazon storefront attached with each aesthetic. The entire cycle is designed to create and fulfill these desires that align with profit maximization. And this not only fuels overconsumption, but it normalizes tying our identity and our self-worth to our purchasing power.
In case you haven't heard, the clean girl aesthetic is out and mob wife aesthetic is in, apparently. I desperately wish these wealthy white suburban girls would realize the reason they feel the need to change their aesthetic every 3 to 6 months is because they're inherently boring. And they're boring because of white supremacy and white culture. And they take things from other cultures that have been looked down on or deemed as less desirable and repackage that to make it trendy because they're doing it. For instance, the whole cottage core thing and growing a garden and canning your vegetables and dressing like somebody's mama. That has always been part of my culture, but it's not cottage core to me. The clean girl aesthetic took parts of Latina culture, the brown lip liner, the big hoops, the slick back buns, and they repackaged that and sold it to people as something else. And now the mob wife aesthetic. And the very people who've lived that lifestyle, and that's part of who they are, have always been seen as over the top and tacky and gaudy. And they've done it to black culture for years, but that's no longer socially acceptable. So they go into these other subcultures and steal what they can from that. And it feeds into this overconsumption and the need to change yourself and to be on top of trends. And I think we see that reflected on younger generations, you know, the Sephora kids that everybody's been talking about. It's all connected, and it's connected by whiteness. And I think once you realize that, you will no longer have a desire to participate in that, and you will be comfortable just being yourself.
And this is why I say it's commodifying our identities. And I said it before and I'll say it again. We all purchase things. We're all consumers. We all buy things. There's nothing wrong with purchasing. But when we think about the short micro trend cycle, that directly aligns with the fast fashion cycle and how quickly they churn out clothes to match whatever aesthetic is trending at the time, and how that is only contributing to our carbon emission crisis, to our pollution crisis, to our landfill crisis. So not only are we having an identity crisis as a result of this, but we're also contributing to the climate crisis as well. As people shape their identities around these ephemeral tastes of the digital crowd rather than through meaningful real world interactions, it only alienates people more. It only makes people feel more lonely because you have a false sense of community. So instead, people become characters in the TV show of life. They're playing the mob wife, they're playing the coquette, they're playing the Slavic bimbo, all in pursuit of viral fame. And this pervasive influence of aesthetic microtrends on platforms like TikTok extends even beyond the commodification of identity. It also, in my opinion, represents the control that social media apps wield over human lives. By designing these systems that are meant to be addictive, these platforms can dictate not only consumer behavior, but how individuals perceive themselves and their social environments. This is how they keep you scrolling for hours. And I've been there, doom scrolling until I can feel my brain rotting. By promoting these micro trends, TikTok taps into the desire for novelty and belonging, and they make the platform indispensable in this way for people who fear missing out on the latest trend. Obviously, you guys have heard about the ongoing legislation to ban TikTok, which despite all of this, I don't agree with. People should be allowed to let their brains rot if that's what they want to do. But what are these people going to do when you've built so much of your identity on a platform that is not sustainable, that could be disappearing next year? What are you going to do? How is your identity crisis only going to worsen if that does happen? Constantly feeling like you have to be connected can be exhausting. This constant influx of new aesthetic trends can be overwhelming because it creates this pressure to keep up with this ever-evolving image that keeps changing, that never stays consistently the same for long. And this decline in attention span is a serious consequence that really reduces people's ability to think critically, in my opinion, and that unfortunately is making people a lot less intelligent. As someone who's old enough to have lived in an era before social media, or at least social media in its current iteration, I remember a time when you could listen to your favorite album without knowing what number it debuted on the Billboard charts. I remember when you could just like something and it could be just yours alone to like. I remember a time before groupthink culture was such a norm. There's a lot of great bonding and conversations that can take place on social media, but when we are subscribing to whole identities, when we are constantly running or ordering online to keep up with the newest, latest, greatest aesthetic, that's not doing anything to make us smarter, to make us better. This bite-sized way that we receive content doesn't allow for nuanced thinking. People give hot takes in the right tone of voice, in the right cadence, and it goes viral, it blows up. Let's talk about how these trends trivialize womanhood. Trends like that girl and the clean girl, or even the trad wife promote this sanitized, idealized version of womanhood. Focus on the looks and lifestyles that are often unattainable and narrow. This not only commodifies identity, but it dumps down, for lack of a better term, complex individuals into marketable traits. A lot of these trends often reduce women to their physical appearance or their domestic prowess that echo traditional gender roles. Some of these trends even go so far as to infantilize women, like the girl dinner / girl math trend that you saw gain popularity last year. Not knowing how to budget and being financially irresponsible, that's girl math.
This is girl math. So I bought this purse for $38, which means it was $30. Round down, not up. Girl math. I spent $200 at one store, but all the other stores we walked into, I didn't buy anything. So when you spread it out, that was good.
You saved money.
I saved money because I walked out of Zara not buying anything.
Yeah, girl math. We went to Sephora and the lady at the cash said that if I spend $20, then I get 500 points, which is $10 off my next purchase. So I made money.
Girl math.
So today we're going to be explaining girl math and what it really is for those who don't know. Starting off strong, returning an item means I'm making money. So if I buy a shirt for $30 and I return it in a week, I get $30 back. That's an extra $30 in my bank account. And this is my main side hustle. This is the key to making money. Buying nice things is an investment because I'm investing in myself. So if I buy a nice pair of shoes, a nice bag, I'm investing in myself. And if that guy on TikTok ever stops me at the mall or something and asks me what I do for a living, I'm gonna say that I invest in myself. If I go shopping and I don't buy anything, that means that my budget for the next day is now doubled because I am just so good at saving money that I deserve to treat myself. And it basically won't cost me a thing because I didn't buy anything. If something is on sale and I don't buy it, then I'm losing money because I can be saving so much money if I just buy it on sale because it's on sale. If I buy a bag for $500 and I wear it every day, then it's about $1.30 a day. And that's very affordable. $1.30 a day is basically negligible and that bag is basically free. Now, if my Starbucks app is already loaded, then my coffee is free. I don't care if I just loaded it the day before for $50. If I'm buying it today, my coffee is free. Paying for something in cash also means that it's free. So my nails have been free for years. I always pay in cash. That's the only way to go. Coffee in cash, free coffee, you name it.
Not knowing how to cook, that's a girl dinner. Girls are really romanticizing eating hot Cheetos for dinner because it's hashtag girl dinner. By making light of women's inexperience or disinterest in finance, these trends promote financial illiteracy as a form of independence, as a form of feminism. TV shows like the late 90s girlhood classic Sex and the City was one of the most groundbreaking representations of womanhood, but it also contributed to perpetuating the same stereotypes and behaviors regarding financial management and independence. The series featured 4 women living glamorous lifestyles in New York City, often depicted in high-end clothing, dining at upscale restaurants, and engaging in extravagant shopping sprees. The main character of the show, Carrie Bradshaw, is a writer who became iconic for her love of designer shoes, famously quipping that she could have funded a whole down payment on an apartment with what she spent on footwear. Carrie spends much of the show living above her means, maxing out her credit cards and making poor financial decisions, all in the name of shopping till she dropped. And there is always a man or some random stranger around to bail her out of financial ruin. Constant exposure to this kind of media messaging can really expose us to these unrealistic expectations of what financial independence looks like. And it makes people think that these extravagant lifestyles are desirable and even attainable for most people, which it's not. And I talked about recently on Patreon how I, as a young woman, was watching shows like Sex and the City, how I was watching shows like Gossip Girl, watching movies like Clueless, that showed me that shopping was a woman's favorite pastime. Sex and the City in particular often frequently associated not knowing how to cook or perform other domestic tasks with this sort of chic independence. Sound familiar to the girl dinner trend? Now, this isn't to say that women need to be pregnant and barefoot and cooking 24/7 for their man, okay? That is not what I am insinuating. However, I'm saying that you should at the very least be able to cook for yourself. I fall into this trap of takeout until I realized how much money I was wasting by constantly ordering out. And there's nothing wrong with ordering out. You do what you want to do with your money. But I'm saying if you are wearing it as a badge of honor that you have no cooking skills and you're a grown adult, that's a problem. Unless you're disabled, which is a different story, and you physically can't cook. I'm talking about people who are able-bodied, who are non-disabled, who have the capability to learn how to cook, but they think it's some chic independence thing to not cook. Skills like knowing how to cook and manage your finances are basic markers of being an adult. Never mind gender. They're basic markers of self-sufficiency. To me, cooking is a form of self-love. There's nothing like the love that you can put in a meal that you make for yourself, or if you're making it for your loved ones too. And the girl dinner / girl math trend is not the only one to garner criticism about the origins of these trends and what exactly they're promoting with women and how it minimalizes womanhood. With the clean girl trend, there's been lots of discourse on how that trend appropriates things that were already a part of Black womanhood and just repackaged it and called it something else to make it marketable to a different group of people. The mob wife trend has also garnered widespread controversy regarding the ways in which it romanticizes mob life, where mob wives are often the accessories to their violent husbands who are participating in illicit activities, and turning it into a cute, quirky trend is problematic. The Slavic bimbo trend has also come under fire for turning the horrific treatment of Eastern European women into an aesthetic.
At the core of the Slavic bimbo aesthetic is a decades-long history of human trafficking. After the fall of the USSR, most of the post-Soviet countries and Russia fell into extreme poverty, and this poverty really disproportionately affected women. So traffickers began targeting Russian women, and usually would send them to North America or Western European countries. Media oftentimes depicts mail-order brides as being scammers. They don't really actually look into the truth, which is that most of the time these women are being sold by someone. They're not getting that money themselves. In the 90s and 2000s, we started to see the Russian bimbo prostitute aesthetic start to come into media, and usually it was depicting these women as scammers or gold diggers, not as trafficking victims. I myself am a post-Soviet woman, but I just thought it was kind of interesting, and I thought people might want to know where this kind of aesthetic / stereotype comes from.
But these trends are not an isolated phenomenon, right? Before social media, television, film, radio has always been a huge factor in shaping women's identities and roles. From the domestic bliss of the 1950s housewife to the rebellious figures of the 60s and 70s, media has always had a hand in molding the public perception of women. What we're seeing with TikTok is just the latest chapter in the ongoing narrative of women's representation in media. I will always say, I enjoy TikTok to a certain extent, and I think that it can be a great outlet for creativity. This bite-sized, truncated way in which we're receiving information, in which we're receiving images, is not conducive to learning or growth. It promotes a commodified and regressive view of identity. When you are pulling entire identities, you're letting it shape your real life, that's dangerous. As a society, we have to be able to reclaim our identities outside of the clutches of consumer capitalism. These trends portray an unrealistic form of life that most people can't attain to. Most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck and can't afford to keep up with these trends. Most Americans don't have time to wake up at 5 a.m. and do yoga and Pilates and drink a green juice and have a really aesthetic life and be that girl. And whether you realize it or not, when you're looking at this content, unless you have the money to keep up with all of these trends, it's going to make you feel inadequate. So no, you don't have no personality. You have a personality underneath. There's more to you than being that girl or the clean girl or the tomato girl or having a girl dinner or doing girl math. I know that human beings are rich with layers. I know that all human beings are layered, complex individuals. And it's time for us to start showing that authentic self to the world instead of trying to market yourself in a way that's going to get the most likes and views and clicks. Showcase what makes you unique. You don't always have to have the perfect hair or the perfect clothes or the perfect makeup or the perfect body, because your body is not a commodity. Your body is priceless. And resisting these trends is a form of radical self-love, if I ever did see it. But I would love to hear from you all in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on this hamster wheel of trends that is constantly being promoted on TikTok and across all social media platforms? I would love to hear from you all. And if you want to continue this conversation with me on Twitter or Instagram or Patreon, you can follow me on either of those platforms, where I promise there is no homogenized aesthetic that's being promoted. So thank you so much for watching today's video, and I can't wait to talk to you all next time.